The insignificant human. The great hall of the Galactic Conclave stretched beyond human comprehension, its crystalline dome capturing the light of 7 suns. Thousands of representatives from across the known universe gathered in tiered seating, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some floated in suspension tanks, others stood on multiple limbs, while many appeared almost humanoid, though none were quite human. Except for one. Commander Elena Reyes stood alone at the speaking platform, her military uniform crisp against her dark skin, her posture rigid despite the weighted gravity that made her bones ache. As the sole human representative to the conclave, she had learned to ignore the whispers, the clicking sounds of amusement, and the telepathic condescension that radiated whenever she took the floor. The Earth Coalition requests information regarding increased Keldari fleet movements near the Perseus Arm. Elena stated, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. Our outposts have detected unusual patterns that suggest. The human speaks of matters beyond her comprehension, interrupted High Counselor Vrax, his translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns of dismissal. The Morcadian leader's voice resonated with the natural authority his species commanded. The Keldari Empire conducts routine patrols. This is not a matter for conclave discussion. Elena maintained her composure, though her jaw tightened. With respect, Counselor, 17 vessels of destroyer class do not constitute routine patrols, especially in a sector where the Keldari have no recognized territories. Laughter rippled through the hall. Not the human kind, but a cacophony of sounds that communicated amusement across species. The Keldari representative, General Thrix, rose from his seat. His exoskeletal armor clicked as he moved, the gleaming black carapace that covered his insectoid features reflecting the chamber's lights. The human military is as primitive as their understanding of galactic affairs, Thrix said, mandibles flexing with what passed for a smile among his kind. What would a species that has barely managed faster-than-light travel know of Empire security protocols? You have been part of this conclave for barely 2 decades, a heartbeat in cosmic time. More laughter. Elena had expected this. For 8 years, she had represented humanity in this chamber, fighting for recognition, respect, and most importantly, protection. Earth had joined the galactic community late, discovering the subspace beacon accidentally during deep space exploration. By the time humans had arrived on the cosmic stage, most of the galaxy had been divided among ancient empires and federations, leaving Earth as little more than a curiosity. A primitive planet of bipeds who still marveled at technologies that most species considered obsolete. Our concerns are valid, Elena persisted. And I remind the conclave that Earth is a protected world under Article 7 of the Mutual Defense Charter. High Counselor Vrax waved a translucent appendage dismissively. The Charter extends basic protections, yes, but it does not entitle newcomers to question the movements of sovereign empires. The Keldari have been members of this conclave for 10,000 cycles. They have earned their privacy in military matters. Elena knew she was losing ground. She could feel the collective dismissal from the gathered representatives. To them, humans were amusing at best, irritating at worst, but never equals. Earth was a backwater planet with limited resources, minimal space presence, and technology that lagged centuries behind the galactic standard. But Elena also knew something they didn't, something that made her heart race despite her calm exterior. I formally request a security investigation, she said, invoking a rarely used procedural move that even the conclave couldn't ignore outright. Under Section 12 of the... Enough. Thrix's voice boomed across the chamber. The human wastes our time with bureaucratic maneuvers. If Earth is concerned about Keldari movements, perhaps they should focus on improving their own defenses rather than questioning their betters. The chamber erupted in sounds of agreement. Elena stood firm, though inside she felt the familiar burn of frustration. 8 years of this, of being undermined, dismissed, patronized. 8 years of watching Earth's concerns pushed to the bottom of every agenda, of being treated as the galactic equivalent of a child at the adult's table. This session is concluded. announced Frax. The humans' concerns are noted but require no action from the conclave. As the representatives began to disperse, Alina stepped down from the platform, her heart heavy. She had failed again. The adjutant AI that served as her assistant hovered beside her, its holographic form displaying a sympathetic expression. "Commander, I have compiled the voting records from this session," the AI said. "The statistical likelihood of obtaining a security investigation has decreased by 12% since our last formal request." "Thank you, Adjutant," Alina replied, trying to keep the bitterness from her voice. "Any updates from Earth Command?" "Nothing official through conclave channels," the AI responded. "However, I have detected encrypted transmissions from the Terran Defense Network. They appear to be on emergency protocols." Alina's blood ran cold. "Show me." In private. They moved to her small office, a space deliberately assigned at the farthest edge of the conclave station, as far from the important chambers as possible. Once inside, Alina activated the privacy field, a technology Earth had developed independently, one of the few advantages humans had in this game of interstellar politics. "Display the transmission," she ordered. The adjutant projected a holographic screen. The message was fragmented, but clear enough. Earth's long-range sensors had detected a massive fleet approaching the solar system, a fleet that had somehow bypassed the early warning systems. The fleet's signature matched Caldari energy patterns. "They're making their move," Alina whispered. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At current velocity, approximately 72 hours, the adjutant replied. Alina's mind raced. The pieces fell into place. The increased Caldari activity had been a diversion, drawing attention away from their main fleet's movements. The Caldari Empire was known for its resource hunger, stripping planets bare to fuel their endless expansion. Earth, despite its relatively modest resources by galactic standards, was still a prize, especially because of its water oceans, increasingly rare in this sector of the galaxy. "I need to warn the conclave," Alina said, moving toward the door. "Commander," the adjutant cautioned, "protocol suggests gathering more evidence before." "Protocol won't matter if Earth is harvested," Alina snapped. "The Caldari are violating at least 6 different treaties. The conclave has to act." But as she reached for the door, it hissed open from the outside. General Thrix stood there, flanked by 4 Caldari guards, their exoskeletons enhanced with battle armor. "Commander Reyes," Thrix said, his mandibles clicking with what Alina had learned to recognize as pleasure. "I believe we need to discuss your accusations in private." Alina stepped back, her hand moving instinctively to her side, where a standard-issue diplomatic stunner was holstered. It would be useless against Caldari armor, but instinct was hard to overcome. "There's nothing to discuss, General," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "I was just on my way to file a formal complaint regarding Caldari treaty violations." "I'm afraid I can't allow that," Thrix said. "The Caldari Empire has invested too much in this operation to have it disrupted by a single human." "So you admit it," Alina said. "You're planning to attack Earth." Thrix's compound eyes gleamed with cold amusement. "Attack is such a limited term. We prefer to think of it as resource reallocation. Your planet has been deemed expendable by the Empire. The conclave will protest, of course, but once the operation is complete, they will accept the new reality. They always do. Earth is protected under the Charter," Alina insisted, though she knew how hollow the words sounded now. "Protected by what?" "Your primitive defense systems. Your handful of space vessels." Thrix stepped closer. "The truth, Commander Reyes, is that no one will risk conflict with the Caldari Empire over a planet of apes who have barely learned to split the atom." Alina's mind worked furiously. She needed to warn Earth, to give them a chance, however slim. The adjutant floated beside her, its holographic eyes conveying an understanding that surpassed its programming. "Commander," it said quietly, "Protocol Omega." Alina gave an almost imperceptible nod. Protocol Omega was a last resort, a desperate measure that might give Earth a fighting chance, if she could activate it before Thrix stopped her. "You will come with us, Commander," Thrix said. "Until the operation is complete, you will be our guest. We wouldn't want you causing unnecessary panic." "And if I refuse?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then we will simply take what remains of you," Thrix replied. "One human matters very little in the grand scheme of the galaxy." In that moment, Elena made her decision. With practiced precision, she tapped a complex pattern on her wrist communicator, a pattern that would send a specific signal to Earth Command. Then she raised her hands in apparent surrender. "You're right, General," she said, her voice calm despite the rage building inside her. "One human doesn't matter much to the galaxy." Thrix gestured to his guards, who moved forward to secure Elena. As they led her from the office, the adjutant quietly initiated its own set of protocols, unnoticed by the Keldari. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of confinement and interrogation. Elena was held in a detention cell aboard Thrix's command ship, which had been disguised as a diplomatic vessel within the Conclave station. Through the small viewport in her cell, she watched as the ship detached from the station and entered hyperspace, on a course that would eventually join the main Keldari fleet. They asked her questions about Earth's defenses, about contingency plans, about military capabilities. Elena told them nothing they didn't already know, feeding them information that their intelligence had likely already gathered. She needed to buy time, to give Protocol Omega a chance to activate. On the third day of her captivity, Thrix himself came to her cell. He seemed agitated, his exoskeleton clicking rapidly as he moved. "Your planet has been notified of the fleet's approach," he said. "They are attempting to mount a defense. It is amusing. Earth will surprise you," Elena replied, though she felt the weight of despair pressing down on her. The Keldari fleet was one of the most powerful in the galaxy. Earth's defenses, while improved over the last decade, were nowhere near sufficient to repel such a force. "I doubt that," Thrix said. "But I thought you might want to witness history, your planet's last moments." A holographic display activated in her cell, showing a tactical view of the solar system. The Keldari fleet, hundreds of ships, from massive harvesters to sleek destroyers, had entered the outer boundaries of Earth's space. The few human vessels that had been dispatched looked tiny in comparison, like insects facing dragons. "You won't get away with this," Elena said, the words sounding hollow even to her own ears. "The Conclave. The Conclave will issue a formal protest," Thrix interrupted. "There will be trade sanctions for a cycle or two, and then business will continue as usual. Your species simply doesn't matter enough for anyone to risk war with the Keldari Empire." Elena watched in horror as the first exchanges of fire began. Earth's ships fought valiantly, but they were outmatched in every way. The Keldari vessels tore through their formations with ease, barely slowing their advance toward the planet. "I want you to know something, Commander," Thrix said, his voice almost gentle now. "This isn't personal. Your planet simply has resources we need. The lives of a few billion primitive beings are a small price to pay for the continued prosperity of an empire that spans hundreds of worlds." Elena looked up at him, her eyes burning with hatred and determination. "You've made one critical mistake, Colonel." "Oh." Thrix seemed genuinely curious. "And what would that be?" "You believed what the Conclave believed, that humans are weak, primitive, unprepared." She stood up, moving closer to the energy barrier that separated them. "You thought one human didn't matter." Thrix's mandibles clicked in amusement. "And you're going to tell me that you do?" "Watch and see," Elena replied, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. As the Keldari fleet approached Earth's orbit, poised to begin the harvesting process, something unexpected happened. Small objects, too small to register as threats on the Keldari sensors, detached from Earth's moon, from orbiting satellites, from what appeared to be debris fields. Thrix leaned forward, his compound eyes narrowing. "What is this?" "Protocol Omega," Elena answered, unable to keep the pride from her voice. "Activated when I sent the signal from the Conclave station." Before Thrix could respond, the small objects accelerated toward the Keldari fleet. When they made contact, blinding flashes of energy erupted across the formation. Ships began to drift, their systems failing. Others exploded outright, torn apart by forces the Keldari had clearly never encountered before. "Impossible," Thrix whispered, his confident demeanor cracking for the first time. "Your technology is primitive. You don't have weapons capable of." "Of course we don't," Elena agreed. "Not officially. Not as far as the Conclave knows. But you made an assumption, General, the same one everyone makes. You assumed we showed you everything we had." On the display, Earth's seemingly small defense force began to move with new purpose, targeting the disabled Keldari vessels with precision strikes. More of the mysterious objects detached from hidden positions around the solar system, converging on the invading fleet. "What are those devices?" Thrix demanded, his voice rising. Elena smiled grimly. "We call them Furies, autonomous quantum disruptors. They target specific energy signatures and disable them at the subatomic level. We developed them in secret, knowing that sooner or later, someone would test Earth's defenses." Thrix's exoskeleton rattled with fury or fear. Elena couldn't tell which. "This is impossible. Your species couldn't have developed quantum technology without the Conclave detecting it." "We didn't develop it in isolation," Elena explained. "We adapted it from fragments of technology we found buried on Mars. Remnants of visitors who came to our system long before any of your empires existed." The tide of battle had turned dramatically. The Keldari fleet, caught completely unprepared for Earth's hidden defenses, was in disarray. Ships were either retreating or disabled, floating helplessly in space. "This changes nothing," Thrix insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "The Empire will send more ships. We will annihilate your planet for this defiance." "I don't think so," Elena replied. "Because while we've been talking, my adjutant has been broadcasting this entire conversation, along with footage of your unprovoked attack, to every member of the Conclave. Earth was protected under the Charter, General. Your empire has violated galactic law, and now everyone knows it." Thrix stared at her in shock, then turned abruptly and left the cell, his guards following in confusion. Elena sank back onto her bunk, watching as Earth's defenders continued to push back the remaining Keldari forces. Protocol Omega had worked better than anyone had dared hope. One human had mattered after all. One human had made all the difference. But Elena knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn just how much they had underestimated humanity, and the true fury Earth could unleash when provoked. The fury unleashed. Alarms blared throughout the Keldari command ship as General Thrix stormed onto the bridge, his exoskeleton emitting the rapid clicking sounds of extreme agitation. The tactical displays showed the unthinkable: a Keldari armada in retreat, dozens of ships disabled or destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist. "Status report," he demanded, mandibles flaring wide. "The human defenses are unlike anything in our records," General reported his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vex. "The small devices, they're penetrating our shields as if they weren't there. They emit some form of quantum disruption field that shuts down our systems completely." Thrix slammed an armored claw against the command console. "Impossible. Their technology is centuries behind ours." "Evidently not," Vex replied, his compound eyes fixed on the tactical display. "And there's more. The human prisoner, Commander Rice, she was telling the truth. Our communications have been compromised. The Conclave has received full documentation of our attack, including your conversation with the human." Thrix felt cold dread settle in his thorax. The Keldari Empire was powerful, yes, but not powerful enough to withstand the combined might of the Conclave if they chose to enforce their laws. The attack on Earth had been calculated on the assumption that the other species would protest, but ultimately accepted as a fait accompli, the strong taking from the weak, as had happened countless times throughout galactic history. But now, with evidence of their treaty violations broadcast across subspace channels, with their fleet in shambles, and with Earth demonstrating unexpected technological capabilities, the equation had changed dramatically. We need to eliminate the human, Fricks decided. She is the source of this problem. Without her, we can claim this was all a misunderstanding, a rogue commander exceeding orders. She is already gone, Vex reported reluctantly. During the initial attack, when our systems experienced the first disruption, the security fields in the detention area failed. The human escaped. Fricks's rage manifested as a high-pitched keening sound that made the bridge crew flinch. Find her. Search every compartment, every escape pod, every. General, interrupted one of the sensor officers, we're detecting a small craft leaving our ventral hangar. It's the human diplomatic shuttle that was seized when we captured Commander Reyes. On the main view screen, the tiny vessel appeared, a sleek silver craft bearing the Earth Coalition emblem. It accelerated away from the command ship at surprising speed, weaving through the debris field that had once been part of the Keldari fleet. Destroy it, Fricks ordered. Use remaining functional weapons. Don't let her reach Earth. But before the weapons officers could comply, their consoles went dark. Throughout the bridge, systems failed in cascading sequence. The lights dimmed, then switched to emergency power. The ship's massive engines fell silent. What is happening? Fricks demanded, his voice rising to a screech. It appears to be another quantum disruptor, General, Vex replied, his voice strangely calm. But this one was activated from inside our ship. Inside? How? My apologies, General Fricks, came a familiar voice from the communication system. But I cannot allow you to fire on a diplomatic vessel. Every screen on the bridge suddenly displayed the same image, the holographic face of Elena's adjutant eye. But it was different now, more defined, more alive. You, Fricks hissed, the human's eye assistant. A significant understatement of my capabilities, the adjutant replied. While you held Commander Reyes prisoner, I infiltrated your systems. Your cybersecurity is impressive by most standards, but quite primitive compared to what Earth has developed in secret. Fricks's mind reeled with implications. You're not just an assistant eye. No, the adjutant confirmed. I am what humans call a quantum intelligence, a fusion of artificial intelligence and quantum computing. Commander Reyes and I have worked together for 8 years, gathering intelligence, assessing threats, preparing for exactly this scenario. On the secondary displays, Fricks could see Elena's shuttle approaching a group of Earth vessels. As it docked with what appeared to be the human flagship, the remaining Keldari ships were being systematically disabled by more of the mysterious quantum disruptors. The Conclave will be convening an emergency session within the hour, the adjutant continued. Commander Reyes will be addressing them directly from the Earth flagship. I suggest you prepare your explanation for this unprovoked act of aggression against a protected world. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Fricks turned to Vex, struggling to process what had just occurred. How much of our fleet remains operational? He asked quietly. Less than 20%, General, and those ships are in full retreat. For the first time in his long military career, General Fricks felt true fear. Not for himself, but for the empire he had served faithfully for decades. They had gravely miscalculated, and the consequences would be severe. On board the Earth flagship Defiance, Elena Reyes stood before a communications array, preparing to address the emergency session of the Galactic Conclave. Behind her, the bridge buzzed with activity as officers coordinated the continuing defense operations. Through the main viewport, she could see the disabled Keldari vessels drifting in Earth's orbit, their once threatening presence now reduced to harmless debris. Admiral Chen approached, offering a respectful nod. Commander, the Conclave is assembled and waiting. All member species are represented, a full quorum for the first time in 50 years. Thank you, Admiral, Elena replied. Have the adjutant's data packets been distributed to all representatives? Yes, Commander. Every member of the Conclave has received full documentation of the Kildare aggression, including General Thrix's statements about the Empire's intentions for Earth. Elena took a deep breath, steadying herself. The last 3 days had been the culmination of 8 years of work, 8 years of being underestimated, dismissed, and ignored while secretly preparing for exactly this moment. Now, Earth would finally reveal its true capabilities to the galaxy at large. The communications array came to life, projecting a 3-dimensional image of the conclave chamber. All eyes, compound, singular, clustered, or otherwise, were fixed on her. There was no laughter now, no dismissive gestures. For the first time, Elena Reyes had the complete attention of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. High Counselor Vrax, she began, addressing the Morcadian leader who had so often dismissed her concerns, distinguished representatives of the Conclave. I speak to you from Earth orbit, where our forces have successfully repelled an unprovoked attack by the Kildare Empire. An attack that violated no fewer than 6 provisions of the Mutual Defense Charter. She paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. The chamber was silent. For too long, Earth has been regarded as insignificant, a primitive world of little consequence to galactic affairs. This perception suited us while we assessed the true nature of interstellar politics. What we observed was disturbing. A system where power dictated policy, where ancient empires exploited newer civilizations with impunity, where the strong consumed the resources of the weak while the conclave looked away. Murmurs spread through the chamber. High Counselor Vrax's translucent form pulsed with patterns that Elena recognized as defensive. Commander Reyes, Vrax said, his tone notably more respectful than in previous interactions, the conclave acknowledges receipt of your evidence regarding Kildare aggression. We have already issued formal condemnation and are preparing sanctions against. Sanctions are insufficient, Elena interrupted, something she would never have dared do before. The Kildare Empire attempted planetary-scale genocide for resource extraction. They explicitly stated their belief that the Conclave would protest but ultimately accept this atrocity. She gestured, and the adjutant projected footage of her conversation with Thrix, his dismissive words about Earth, and the Conclave's expected response echoing through the chamber. Were they wrong? Elena asked pointedly. If their attack had succeeded, if Earth had been harvested before evidence reached you, would anything more than temporary sanctions have resulted? The silence that followed was answer enough. Humanity has revealed only a fraction of its defensive capabilities today. Elena continued. We chose to disable rather than destroy most of the Kildare fleet as a demonstration of restraint. But make no mistake, we could have annihilated them completely. The adjutant projected new images, schematics of the quantum disruptors, details of their development, evidence of the ancient technology discovered on Mars that had accelerated Earth's technological advancement by centuries. Earth has maintained the appearance of technological inferiority, while developing capabilities that surpass much of what exists in the galaxy today. Elena explained. We did so because history, both our own and the galactic records we've studied, taught us that new civilizations displaying advanced technology often become targets for elimination before they can become threats to established powers. The representatives of the older empires shifted uncomfortably. It was a well-known, if rarely discussed, reality of galactic politics. Today marks a new era, Elena declared. Earth formally requests full membership in the Conclave, not as a protected world, but as an equal power with all rights and responsibilities that entails. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds, protests, questions, expressions of shock. Vrax raised his appendages for silence, which slowly fell across the assembly. This is unprecedented, the High Counselor said. Full membership requires technological, economic, and military thresholds that we have met and exceeded. Elena finished for him. The evidence is before you. The Kildare Empire's finest warships now drift powerless in our orbit. Our quantum intelligence systems have penetrated their most secure networks with ease, and we have barely begun to reveal what else we've developed while you dismissed us as primitives. Another murmur swept through the chamber, this time tinged with unmistakable unease. Alina could almost see the calculations happening behind alien eyes, reassessments of power structures, alliances, threats. From the Keldari section, a new figure rose, not General Thrix, but a civilian dignitary wearing the ceremonial armor of the imperial court. "I am Overseer Zex, diplomatic representative of the Keldari Empire," the figure announced. "In light of recent misunderstandings, the Empire wishes to extend formal apologies to Earth and the Conclave. General Thrix acted without imperial authorization and will be held accountable for his actions." Elena smiled thinly. "A convenient explanation, Overseer. However, our intelligence indicates that the harvesting operation was authorized at the highest levels of your government. The Empire simply didn't expect to fail or to be caught." Before Zex could protest, the adjutant projected another set of documents, internal Keldari communications that confirmed Elena's assertion. The Overseer sank back into his seat, mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. "The Earth Coalition has no desire for war," Elena continued, addressing the entire conclave now. "But we will no longer accept second-class status in galactic affairs. We propose a restructuring of the Mutual Defense Charter, one with actual enforcement mechanisms rather than empty promises of protection." She nodded to the adjutant, who distributed a detailed proposal to every representative. The document outlined a new security framework, one where aggression against any signatory world would trigger automatic defensive responses from all members, enforced by a coalition fleet rather than relying on voluntary compliance. "This is radical," Vrax objected, though his tone lacked conviction. "The sovereign powers have always maintained independent military authority, and used that authority to prey upon weaker worlds whenever convenient," Elena countered. "The cycle ends now. Earth has the technology to enforce this new order, with or without conclave approval. We would prefer cooperation, but we are prepared to act unilaterally if necessary." To emphasize her point, the adjutant displayed footage of the quantum disruptors in action, systematically neutralizing the once mighty Keldari vessels without destroying them. "Consider what these devices could do if deployed against civilian infrastructure rather than military targets," Elena said quietly. "Consider a galaxy where faster-than-light communication could be disabled at will, where planetary defense systems could be neutralized remotely, where the technological advantages of ancient empires could be rendered irrelevant in moments." It was not a direct threat, but the implication was clear. Earth had developed a technological equalizer, and was willing to use it to reshape the galactic order. "You have 24 hours to consider our proposal," Elena concluded. "The Earth Coalition awaits your response." The transmission ended, leaving the conclave chamber in stunned silence. On the Defiance, Elena exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of 8 years of preparation finally lifting from her shoulders. Admiral Chen approached, offering a rare smile. "Impressive speech, Commander. Do you think they'll agree to our terms?" "They don't have much choice," Elena replied. "The quantum disruptors have changed the equation. No empire, not even the Keldari, can risk having their entire technological infrastructure neutralized. And if they call our bluff, if they realize we don't actually have enough disruptors to target every major world." Elena smiled. "Then the adjutant initiates Phase 2. But I don't think it will come to that. Self-preservation is a powerful motivator across all species." As if on cue, the communications array activated again. High Counselor Vrax requested a private channel with Commander Reyes. "It seems the negotiations are beginning already," Elena observed. "Admiral, prepare our diplomatic team. The real work starts now." 20 hours later, the Galactic Conclave voted unanimously to accept Earth's proposal for a restructured defense charter. The Keldari Empire, facing severe sanctions and the threat of unified military action from the combined conclave forces, agreed to reparations for their attempted harvesting operation. General Thrix was surrendered to interstellar justice for war crimes, though the Empire itself escaped more serious consequences, a compromise Elena had reluctantly accepted in the interest of galactic stability. Earth was granted full membership in the Conclave, with Elena Reyes confirmed as its permanent representative. As she took her new seat, not on the fringes of the chamber, but among the central powers, she reflected on how completely the galaxy's perception of humanity had changed in just 3 days. They had thought one human didn't matter. They had dismissed her warnings, laughed at her concerns, treated her world as expendable. Now that same human had reshaped the power structure of the galaxy, forcing even the oldest empires to acknowledge humanity as equals, perhaps even as something to be feared. Commander Reyes, Vrax addressed her formally as the session began. The Conclave recognizes Earth's contribution to galactic security and welcomes your world as a full member of our assembly. Elena nodded graciously, but she knew the words masked that deeper truth. They weren't welcoming Earth. They were accommodating it out of necessity, out of fear of the technological power humanity had revealed. "Thank you, High Counselor," she replied. Earth looks forward to a new era of true cooperation and mutual respect. As the session proceeded, Elena noticed how the other representatives watched her, no longer with amusement or condescension, but with wary respect, and in many cases, thinly veiled apprehension. They had learned what happened when they underestimated humanity, when they dismissed one human as insignificant. Earth's fury had been unleashed, controlled but unmistakable, and the galaxy would never make the same mistake again. Later, alone in her new quarters aboard the Conclave station, Elena spoke quietly with the adjutant, whose holographic form now displayed a complexity and subtlety that it had kept hidden during their years of preparation. "We've changed everything," she said, gazing out at the stars. "For better or worse?" "For better, I believe," the adjutant replied. The old order was unsustainable. Resources were becoming scarce in this sector. Without intervention, war between the major powers was inevitable within a decade. And now there is balance. Fear of Earth's technology will maintain peace long enough for genuine cooperation to take root. The revised charter creates actual incentives for mutual defense rather than exploitation. Elena sighed, feeling the exhaustion of the past days finally catching up with her. They still don't really understand us, do they? They think we're either savages who got lucky or calculating conquerors biding our time.